Stop blaming your puppy for ruining your carpet. You aren't dealing with a stubborn animal. You're dealing with a biological machine that is currently running on a timer you don't even know exists. I spent the first month with my dog Barnaby thinking he was an agent of chaos sent to destroy my security deposit. I followed every piece of outdated alpha advice I could find, and all it got me was a confused dog and a house that smelled like a crime scene. But then I stopped trying to dominate him and started looking at his biology. Turns out that puddle by the door wasn't defiance. It was his gastrocolic reflex triggering like clockwork. Once I stopped fighting his internal schedule and started working with it, the accident stopped overnight. Today, we're ditching the dominance myths and breaking down the actual scientific timeline of your puppy's brain and body. Let's get your training on track by understanding how your dog is actually wired. Look at this. I've got a blueprint of my living room, a high-precision laser measure, and a tape measure that could span the length of a professional football field. On paper, this room is a fortress of domestic order. In the middle of it stands Barnaby, a sentient ball of fluff that weighs less than a toaster and has the spatial awareness of a pinball. I spent 3 hours yesterday drafting a puppy containment zone. I even calculated the cubic volume of his zoomies path. But here's the problem. Biology doesn't care about your blueprints. Within 5 minutes of me placing him on the rug, the laws of physics seem to undergo a hostile takeover. It's the puppy explosion. How does a creature this small produce a localized disaster area that covers 3 square feet of carpet, a throw pillow, and somehow, inexplicably, the underside of a coffee table? I try to reclaim the space, standing tall, trying to channel that alpha energy the old school trainers rave about. I point to the corner. I use my most authoritative no voice. But Barnaby isn't playing by the rules of pack hierarchy. He's playing by the rules of raw, unrefined motor function. He's faster, he's lower to the ground, and he's operating on a level of erratic speed that makes my tactical planning look like a parody. He zigzags across the floor with the agility of an elite athlete, effectively dominating the living room while I'm just tripping over my own measuring tape. I'm not losing because I'm not dominant enough. I'm losing because I'm trying to solve a biological problem with a logistical mindset. And the secret? It's hidden in a physiological reflex I hadn't even accounted for. One that's about to turn this entire training plan into a very messy comedy of errors. It makes you wonder, if you can't outmaneuver a puppy with blueprints, what actually happens under the hood of their brain? Keep watching, because understanding that biological why is the only way to keep your sanity and your carpet intact. Now, as I stand here watching Barnaby trip over his own oversized paws, it's easy to mistake this chaos for simple puppy clumsiness. But if we pull back the curtain on his biology, there is a clock ticking. A rapid, relentless countdown known as the critical socialization window. We're talking about the period between weeks 3 and 16, a time frame where the brain isn't just learning, it's literally hardwiring its understanding of the entire universe. Think of it like a sketchbook, one where the pages are blank at birth, and every single interaction is a permanent ink stroke that's nearly impossible to erase. In my ledger, I've been mapping this out. During these few months, Barnaby's brain is undergoing a frantic phase of synaptic pruning. He's taking in thousands of environmental data points. The hum of the refrigerator, the texture of the hardwood, the specific cadence of my voice, and deciding which neural pathways are essential and which are noise. If he doesn't map these out now, his adult brain will classify those unfamiliar things as threats. It's not just training, It's environmental architecture. And this is where we have to stop leaning on those tired, outdated alpha wolf manuals that still plague the internet. You know the ones. The idea that you need to be the pack leader or force your puppy into submission. That's not science. It's a failure of imagination. Modern canine ethology has shown us that dogs aren't just trying to dominate your sofa. They're trying to sync with our complex, human-centric lives. They don't need a dictator. They need a guide. When I see Barnaby look up at me, he isn't asking who's in charge. He's asking how he fits into the environment I've built. By shifting our perspective from domination to cognitive partnership, we stop training a subordinate and start developing a companion who can actually think for himself. I've turned these developmental milestones into a simplified visual tracker that I keep in the back of my notes. If you're curious about which socialization phase your puppy is currently hitting, check the link in the description for the full timeline download. Now, while the brain is busy mapping out social boundaries, there is a far more immediate, and frankly more explosive biological process unfolding in his gut, the gastrocolic reflex. Think of it less as digestion and more like a high-speed transit system with no brakes. When Barnaby eats, his stomach sends an almost instantaneous neurological distress signal to his colon, basically saying, "Clear the deck, something new is coming." This isn't a choice, it's a hard-coded survival mechanism. In the wild, weight is a liability for a pup, so they evacuate the moment they fuel up. I learned this the hard way, or rather, my carpet did. I spent the first week chasing him with a spray bottle, thinking it was a behavioral defect, when in reality, I was just ignoring a biological inevitability. If you visualize the gastrocolic reflex as a literal internal alarm clock, the 15-minute window becomes your greatest tactical advantage. The animation on screen shows the sequence. Food hits the stomach triggers a mass movement in the bowels, and like clockwork, the exit event happens. By timing your outdoor trips to hit that 15-minute post-meal spike, you stop treating housebreaking like a game of guess the mess and start treating it like a precise scientific operation. It's the difference between 7 days of focused training and 7 months of cleaning up accidents. You aren't fighting a stubborn dog. You're just failing to sync your watch with his internal biology. If you want to stop the guessing games and get the exact 7-day schedule I use to master this, check the link in the description for my full biological training roadmap. Now the clock is ticking and, naturally, chaos ensues. We find ourselves in the middle of a domestic battlefield, often defined by the most destructive myth in canine history, the shame paradox. Imagine this. You walk into the living room and find a puddle. Your immediate human instinct, the one fueled by generations of bad advice, is to point, scold, and maybe even rub that little nose in the mess. You want them to feel guilty, right? You want them to know better. But here is where the biology of your puppy crashes headfirst into the wall of human ego. When you tower over a 10-week-old puppy, booming with frustration, that puppy isn't contemplating the ethics of rug sanitation. They aren't thinking, yes, the carpet is a no-go zone. I shall seek the grass next time. No, their brain is processing pure, unadulterated fear. That guilty look you think you see? The lowered head, the tucked tail, the way they slink away? That isn't moral remorse. That is a survival mechanism. Your puppy has just performed a rapid neurological calculation. When the giant makes loud noises, I am in danger. I must hide my movements to stay safe. You haven't taught them where to go. You've taught them that peeing in front of you is a death sentence. Suddenly, you've turned a house training hurdle into a masterclass in deception. Your puppy begins to seek out the safest places to go, behind the sofa, under the curtains, or in the darkest corner of the bedroom. The irony is staggering. You're trying to build a bond, but you're inadvertently building a spy. By shifting from a fear-based, alpha dog mindset to an empathy-driven one, we stop looking at the dog as a defiant criminal and start seeing them as an infant, navigating a world they don't yet understand. If you want a dog that trusts you, you have to stop teaching them that you are a thunderstorm waiting to happen and start being the calm, consistent guide they're biologically wired to follow. If you're tired of the guessing game and want to master the science of non-punitive training, check out the Puppy Blueprint link in the description. At the end of the day, your puppy isn't trying to challenge your authority. They're just trying to navigate a world that's moving way faster than their neurons can process. Stop worrying about being the alpha and start being the architect of their environment. Once you stop fighting their biology and start working with it, you won't just have a trained dog. You'll have a partner who actually understands the language you're speaking. The blueprint is in their nature. Your job is simply to read the manual. See you in the next one.
Barnaby, you